Welcome, everyone. My name is Angela, and I'm zooming in from New York. I'm usually in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm up in Hawthorne Valley, experiencing a different environment, but still excited to connect with you all here. This is the Roots and Renewal program, the Roots and Renewal series that the Anthroposophical Society in America is hosting. So welcome, and thank you for coming together and choosing to turn your attention to the same direction, whichever way that is in your place in the country. We're going to take time together to mark significant anniversaries. And we have a wonderful MC and guide in this process, Hazel Archer Ginsburg. She is the cultural events coordinator from the Rudolf Steiner branch in Chicago. And she's pulled together a team of people from the regional councils. So we have people from the East and the Central and the West all coming together, and really excited for our time together tonight. So I'll pass it over to you, Hazel, and you can take us on our journey.
Thank you, dear Angela, for warming up our cyberspace. You do it so well. And yeah, through our intention, we can purify the Zoom sphere with goodwill. You know, just allowing it to shine out as a protective, illuminating radiance out into all worlds with our enlightened heart thinking. Yeah? So, dear friends, maybe you have already started marking these significant milestones of anthroposophical initiatives. 100 years of eurythmy and Waldorf schools comes to mind. I'm going to do a little screen share thing here. Yeah, so for this Roots and Renewal series, we're taking stock of the signposts along the way, and we're forging our way forward toward the Jubilee, the 100-year anniversary of the refounding of the Anthroposophical Society at the Christmas conference, when Rudolf Steiner took on the leadership of the society, making the sacrifice to align his karma with ours, strengthening our connection to the movement, to anthroposophy, and the spiritual beings working with us to manifest spiritual science on earth during this Michaelic age. So today is July 21st. And Rudolf Steiner attributes this date as being the birthday of Alexander the Great. And on that very same day, in 356 BC, on that very same day, the Temple of Ephesus went up in flames. Now, legend has it that Artemis, to whom the temple was dedicated, she was away. She was busy attending the birth of Alexander. So that's how the arsonist was able to get in and set the temple ablaze. I love these myths and legends. They really help us to think about these connections. So for today's offering, I put together like this, it's a compilation of insights from 4 lectures by Rudolf Steiner, where he outlines the connections between the burning of the Temple of Ephesus, which, by the way, was considered one of the 7 wonders of the world, right? The birth of Alexander the Great, and the burning of the first Goetheanum 100 years ago in 1922. So this year, 2022, seems especially important to explore the spiritual underpinnings of this event. in relation to these other turning points in time. So these three lectures that we're working with, maybe you recognize them. They're from those famous evening lectures that Steiner gave during the Christmas conference, World History in the Light of Anthroposophy. And those of you who joined us for the Epic of Gilgamesh storytelling during the ASA Holy Nights adventure, you may remember these lectures because they were our foundation. And today we're going to pick up where we left off and go into these connections. And the fourth resource comes about 4 months after the Christmas conference at Eastertide in 1924, where Steiner reveals how the mysteries of Ephesus became, he talks about like how they became inscribed in the cosmic ethers after the burning of the temple, and how Aristotle, the teacher of Alexander the Great, was able to receive these mysteries by reading the cosmic script, renewing them, bringing these mysteries to the world in what we call the Aristotelian categories. So yeah, we're so many amazing things here, these cosmic and historic connections. And you know, how can we bring them into our thinking now? And then really, it's up to us to make something of them. Yeah. So, okay. So along with our friends here, I put a little list out here that are going to be bringing this revelatory reading. Our session is going to be enlivened through song, group eurythmy. We'll have a breakout session and we'll have some musical interludes with the reading as well. And just to put up here real quick, this verse that we will begin with is from that Easter lecture that I mentioned. And it has been transformed into song by Lucien and Ultraviolet, bringing us what they call their ancient futurism of their musical group, Velsum. And so then we're going to have this expanded out into eurythmy with Alice Stan. So yeah, I think that's all we need for our way of an introduction. And so we begin our first all regions, roots and renewal session, from Artemis to the representative of humanity and beyond. I invite Velsum.
World engendered being, you in the form of light, from the sun empowered, with Luna's might, endowed with sounding Mars, life-stirring song, and swift-winged Mercury's motion in thy limbs, illumined with royal Jupiter's wisdom, and grace bestowing Venus's loveliness, that ghostly Saturn's ancient memory devoutness, unto the world of space and time, be hallowed.
Thank you, Lucian and Ultra. That is just exquisite planetary music. It really reverberates. Dear friends, I'm Alice Stan, and we thought it would be wonderful to include this in Eurythmy this afternoon. And you'll notice the sequence of planets. It begins with the sun and the moon, like two pillars of the universe. And then it goes to Mars, the planet, upper planets, and then to Mercury, and then to Jupiter, and then down to Venus, and then Saturn. So there's always a breathing between the outer planets and the lower planets, so to speak. There are many different places where you can see different sequences of planets. But this is so interesting, the way there's a breathing between the outer and the inner. So if you would like to join me, let's go through the gestures. Please stand up if you'd like to. We'll go slowly, starting with the sun. And here, if you can reach the right arm up to the right and forward, and the left arm below, behind, and to the left. And the right arm turns clockwise, and the left arm from you turns counterclockwise, as if we combine all the dimensions of space with the sun, and its color is white. And then we bring all of that activity to an inwardness in the moon, a purple mood, inwardness, the creativity. And then from there to the upper planet, first to Mars, and our arms go up as if we bring spirit, heaven to earth to heaven, with a legitimate, aggressive movement. And from Mars, the other part of the sun, the right arm, swings, moving the limbs. Mercury, the messenger of the gods. And after that, again, beyond Mars comes Jupiter. We hold the left hand quietly, making a gentle fist, and the right arm turns around slowly, as if it is always connected to a heartfelt wisdom of the spheres. And after Jupiter, again to the lower planets, now that part of the sun, the left hand turns counterclockwise, as if the heart is stirred with grace, loveliness, and the right hand offers this grace of love without wanting anything, just a gift. After this, we go right to the stars, huge cosmic memory of Saturn. Now we're really at the edge of our system, so to speak. And these 7 planets then would hallow us in the world of space and time. And now one of our wonderful speakers is going to speak this. I will do the first line in Eurythmy, but then immediately from the sun, you join in. Ready, here we go.
Old engendered being, you in the form of light, from the sun empowered with Luna's might, endowed with sounding Mars's life-stirring song, and swift-winged Mercury's motion in thy limbs, illumined with royal Jupiter's all wisdom, and grace bestowing Venus's loveliness. That ghostly Saturn's ancient memoried devoutness unto the world of space and time, the hallow.
Majestic and powerful was the impression that human beings received at Ephesus when they were shown how in their own speech lived the echo of what had once been cosmic.
And the pupil of Ephesus, when they spoke, felt an insight come to them through the experience of speech into the working of the cosmic word.
In Ephesus, one could still have a feeling of the whole reality in which humanity had once upon a time been living, in the days when they still had an immediate relation to the divine spiritual. The presence of the nature spirits on earth and above, the presence of the hierarchies.
Like a haven of refuge in Greek culture stood Ephesus. Heraclitus received instruction from the temple of Ephesus, as did many another great philosophers, Plato too, and Pythagoras. Ephesus was the place where the old Oriental wisdom was preserved up to a certain point.
The ones I spoke to you about as Eabani and Gilgamesh found themselves incarnated together again in Ephesus. And there they entered into a deeply conscious understanding of what they had experienced subconsciously during the Gilgamesh time in connection with the divine spiritual worlds. And these two souls, who were in Ephesus a little after the time of Heraclitus, dwelt later in Aristotle and Alexander the Great.
Their life during this Ephesus time was comparatively peaceful. They were able to digest and ponder what they had received into their souls in that other, more stormy life.
Notably, the soul of Alexander entered into an intimate union with the very being of the mysteries of Ephesus.
The significance of Alexander's moment in the history of Macedonia reaches on the one hand far back into the past, and on the other hand far on into the future.
Aristotle awakened in Alexander all he had passed through in Ephesus, and as Gilgamesh when he undertook the journey over to the west.
Picture to yourselves the part played by this personality. You must imagine how the knowledge that belonged to Ephesus, a knowledge which we may also call a beholding, a perceiving, this knowledge was called up again in the association between Alexander the Great and Aristotle in a new form.
But before this, we come to one of those historical events of which people may think are mere chance. but which have their foundations deep in the interconnections of the evolution of humanity.
If we can imagine this, we can rightly connect the fact that on the day that Alexander was born, Herostratus threw the flaming torch into the sanctuary of Ephesus.
On the very day on which Alexander was born, the temple of Artemis in Ephesus was treacherously burnt to the ground. Its monumental documents, with all that belonged to it, rising up with the smoke. It existed now only as a historical mission in the soul of Alexander and in his teacher, Aristotle.
And now you must bring all that was alive in the soul of Alexander into connection with his mission, with how his mission was inspired by an impulse coming from the configuration of the earth after the fire.
You will understand how what had been a revelation of the divine spiritual was seemingly extinguished with Ephesus. The splendor and the glory, the tremendous majesty of that golden time were gone.
With the burning of Ephesus, the light that had come over from the east was transformed.
You will now be in a position to appreciate the resolve that Alexander made in his soul, to restore to the East what she had lost in a new form.
And now we see what Alexander the Great is really doing in a most wonderful way. When he makes this expedition, he is not bent on the conquest of existing cultures. He is not trying to bring Hellenism to the East in any external way.
Wherever he goes, Alexander the Great not only adopts customs of the land, but he is able also to enter right into the hearts and minds of the human beings who are living there and to think their thoughts. Only a nature such as Alexander's could fire up others with enthusiasm so that they then carried forward the work that he began.
A marvelous feat was performed. The light that had come over from the east, extinguished in Ephesus by the flaming torch of Herostratus, this light, or rather its phantom shadow, now shone back again from Greece and continued to shine until the dramatic moment when, beneath the tyranny of Rome, the schools of the Greek philosophers were ultimately closed.
It is essential to bear in mind how something of a world tragedy hangs over all that has to do with Aristotle and Alexander.
Even externally, the tragedy comes to light, owing to peculiar circumstances that were fateful for the history of the world. Only the smallest part of the writings of Aristotle have come into Western Europe. In point of fact, it is only the writings that deal with logic.
In the 6th century AD, the last of the Greek philosophers fled away to the Academy of Gandhi Shapur.
In all this, we see two elements interworking. In Ephesus was the balance.
And Alexander, born on the day Ephesus had fallen, resolved to found a spiritual Ephesus that should send its sun rays far out to east and west.
It was in very truth this purpose that lay at the root of all that he undertook, to found a spiritual Ephesus. For soon after, what had once been present in Ephesus might now be preserved in Alexandria, be it only in a faltering hand instead of large, shining letters.
It was in this world that stands before you in this picture that the two personalities of whom we have spoken were trained and prepared. in the time of Heraclitus.
And then in 356 AD, on the birthday of Alexander the Great, we behold the flames of fire burst forth from the temple of Ephesus.
Alexander the Great is born and finds his teacher Aristotle. And it is as though from out of the ascending flames of Ephesus, a mighty voice went forth for those who were able to hear it.
Found a spiritual Ephesus, far and wide over the earth. And let the old physical Ephesus stand in the memory of humankind as its center, as its midmost point.
We see Ephesus in flames, and a little later we see the expeditions of Alexander that carried over into the East what Greece had to give for the progress of humankind, so that there came in picture form what she had lost in its reality.
If you will study deeply and intently the picture that I have here set before you, it will give you a true insight into the hidden workings that run through European history down to the present day.
We are nearing the day, my dear friends. We shall have to pass the actual hour of the anniversary when the terrible flames burst forth that destroy the Gertianum. We shall not, however, be able to judge its full significance until we look beyond it to something more. We have to seek the truth of the burning flames in the spiritual fire, that it is ours now to kindle in our hearts and souls. In the midst of the physically burning Gertianum shall arise for us a spiritually living Gertianum.
We can, on the one hand, look upon the flames mounting up in terrible tongues of fire from the Gertianum and behold at the same time in the background that other treacherous burning of Ephesus, when Herostratus, guided by demonic powers, flung the flaming brand into the temple.
When we bring these two events together, setting one in the background and one in the foreground of our thought, we shall then have a picture that will perhaps have power to write deeply enough in our hearts what we have lost and what we must strive our utmost to build again.
In the times preceding the burning of Ephesus, people spoke of the mysteries in the following manner. Human knowledge, human wisdom has a home and a dwelling place in the mysteries. And when, in those olden times, the spiritual guides of the universe spoke of the mysteries, it was somewhat in the following way.
In the mysteries, men build places where gods can find the human beings who do sacrifice and who understand us in the sacrifice.
It was known that in the places of the mysteries, gods meet with the human being. They knew how all that carries and sustains the world depends on what takes place between the gods and the human being in the sacred mysteries.
The term God was applied to all beings of a supersensible nature, to every form of being that had no need to appear on earth in a physical body. Many kinds of gods were differentiated.
I declare to you, wherever the eye of spirit is turned to the deed of the burning of Ephesus, then in those flames of fire may be read the ancient word, the jealousy of the gods. Not the divine spiritual beings who are most closely united with humankind, from which the human being originated and was launched into the stream of time.
Or the same beings that we recognize in the majesty of nature and in her smallest manifestations, and which we discover too in our own inmost selves. These divine spiritual beings can never be jealous.
Certain other beings, Luciferic Ahrimanic beings, saw that humanity was drawing nearer and nearer to the gods. And there arose a jealousy on the part of these other gods, a jealousy concerning humanity.
The Greeks knew very well that this jealousy of the gods exists. They traced back to it much of what took place in the history of humankind.
With the burning of Ephesus, it was made manifest that further spiritual evolution was only possible if more human beings became conscious that there are certain of what we can call gods who are jealous of the further advance of humanity.
This gives a peculiar coloring to all history, which follows the burning of Ephesus, connected also to the birth of Alexander.
And it is essential for a right understanding of the mystery of Golgotha.
We have to see a world filled with the jealousy of certain kinds of gods. But when we come to our own time, then what in earlier ages was an affair between gods and human beings must in this epoch of human freedom be played out below in the physical life of humanity.
The burning of Ephesus marks the beginning of the epoch that saw the gradual and complete disappearance of the mysteries in their ancient form.
And so we may say that in the Goetheanum, we had something that could awaken in an altogether new form, a memory of the old.
When pupils for initiation entered the temple of Ephesus, their attention was directed to the statue of Artemis, which called to them in the language of the heart with these words:
Unite yourself with the cosmic ether, and you will behold the earthly from out of the ether heights.
Many a pupil at Ephesus beheld the earthly from out of the ether heights, and certain gods were jealous.
Had our Goetheanum been brought to completion, then as you entered from the west, your glance would have fallen on a statue that asks the human being to know their cosmic nature, to know thyself as a being set between the powers of Lucifer and Ahriman, God maintained in the midst of inner balance.
Whoever looked upon this Goetheanum with feeling and understanding, could find in it a memory of the temple of Ephesus. This cosmic memory, however, grew to be terribly painful in a manner not at all unlike that which befell Ephesus in earlier time. Exactly at the moment in its evolution when the Goetheanum was ready to become the bearer of the renewal of spiritual life. In that very moment was flung into it the burning brand.
Dear friends, our pain was deep and indescribable, but we made the resolve to go forward, unhindered by this tragedy that had befallen us, to continue our work for the spiritual world. For we were able to say to ourselves, in the depths of our own hearts,
when we look upon the flames that arose from Ephesus, we behold written into the flames these words, the jealousy of the gods.
That was the time when human beings were still unfree and had to follow the will of the good and the evil gods. In our day, human beings are marked out for freedom.
And so then too, we beheld the destroying flames of the Goetheanum. And as one gazed into this sea of flame with its swift lines and tongues of color, one had inescapably to read new words, words that spoke a new pain for the soul, the jealousy of man.
Thus are the words that speak from epoch to epoch in human evolution, bound together in deepest calamity and unhappiness.
In the time when humanity still looked up to the gods in unfreedom, but had it as their task to make themselves free, there was a word that was significant for the deepest unhappiness and grief to them.
They beheld inscribed into the flames the jealousy of the gods. And by a thread of spiritual evolution, our own calamity is linked with this word.
We live in a time when human beings have to find within themselves the power of freedom. And now we behold inscribed in the flames that other word, the jealousy of man.
In Ephesus, the statue of the gods. Here in the Goetheanum, the statue of man, the statue of the representative of humanity.
Whenever it has happened in the evolution of mankind, humankind, that something sacred to that evolution has been torn away, then there have always been a few who have pledged themselves, after the dissolution of the physical, to continue the work in the spirit to which the physical was dedicated.
And gathered here as we are in this moment that marks the anniversary of the tragic loss of our Gertianum, we do well to remember that we shall bring our souls into the right attitude when we pledge ourselves, one and all, to bear onward in the spirit, on the advancing wave of human progress, that which was expressed in physical form and physical image in the Gertianum, and which has been torn away from physical sight by a deed like the deed of Herostratus.
If in this solemn hour that is divided by a relatively short space of time from the actual moment when the flames burst forth, if we pledge ourselves to remain loyal to the spirit to which we erected our Gertianum, if we are able to change the pain and grief into the impulse to action, then we shall also change the sorrowful event into a blessing. It rests with us to find in the pain the urge to action in the spirit.
Let us look back upon the terrible flames of fire as we dedicate ourselves with solemn vow to the highest divine forces that are within us, and a spiritual flame lights up in our hearts.
And the flame in our hearts shall shed new light and warmth on all that was purposed and willed in the Gertianum, on all that we are now resolved to carry forward on the advancing wave of human evolution.
The future life of the mysteries must consciously and deliberately be planted by this anthroposophical society.
For this anthroposophical society has ever before it an event which can be turned to good account in future evolution, even as a similar event was turned to good account once upon a time after the burning of the temple of Ephesus.
Then and now a great and deep wrong was done. Yet on the different planes of life, these things appear in different ways, and it lies in the freedom of humankind to turn to good account that which on one plane is a dreadful wrong. For it is just through these terrible events that a real progress of humankind can be achieved.
In the mysteries of Ephesus, the whole service that was devoted to Artemis or Diana, the goddess of Ephesus, was calculated to enable the human being to experience and enter into the spiritual life and movement within the ether of the cosmos.
And there was a feeling akin to the springing and sprouting of life, a feeling that wafted through the spiritual atmosphere in the sanctuary at Ephesus as a magic breath. All these things were bound up with the temple sanctuary, which then went up in flames, lit by the hand of a criminal or a madman. But as I told you during the Christmas Foundation meeting, 2 initiates of the Ephesian mysteries were reincarnated in Aristotle and Alexander. And these individualities then came near what was still to be felt in these things in their time.
At this point, a seemingly chance event of great spiritual significance in the evolution of the world came to be. For when the temple of Ephesus was burning, it was the hour of Alexander's birth.
And so, as the temple burned, something cosmic was really taking place in the ethers.
How infinitely much had happened in the course of centuries for those who had belonged to this temple. How much spiritual light and wisdom had passed through these temple spaces.
Now that the flames broke forth from the temple, all that had gone on in these temple spaces was communicated to the cosmic ether.
And it is so with many things.
Very much of what is now human wisdom was in ancient times enclosed in temple walls. It has escaped the temple walls. It is now written in the cosmic ether and is visible there as soon as a person rises to spiritual imagination.
Spiritual imagination is the interpreter of the secret of the stars. Thus, we may say, into the cosmic ether are written what were once upon a time the secrets of the temples, and we can read them imaginatively, transformed, as it were, into a great cosmic script. Yet in this historic remembrance of an ancient time, there lies a certain power to create something new.
You must come to understand what the real character of the new creation was that went forth from the working together of Alexander and Aristotle.
They recognized what the fire at Ephesus had signified.
When they saw how this fire had carried forth into the far ether of the world the content of the mysteries of Ephesus, then there arose in these two the inspiration to found the cosmic script.
Of course, the cosmic script is not founded on A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
The cosmic writing is founded on thoughts. There arose through Aristotle the letters of the cosmic writing.
Yet, if I now write them down before you, they are as abstract as A, B, C, D.
Quantity, quality, relation, space, time, position, activity or action, passivity or suffering.
Take these concepts, which Aristotle first expounded to Alexander, and learn to do the same with them as you have learned to do with A, B, C. Then you will learn to read in the cosmos.
But in the age of the abstract, a strange thing has happened in the logic of the schools. In the textbooks of logic, these categories, as they call them, are introduced, and we do not know what to do with them.
That all that anthroposophy can ever bring forth is experienced from out of these concepts.
For in these simple concepts lives the cosmic alphabet. All the secrets of the spiritual and physical worlds are contained therein.
This was what happened in the further evolution of the world. Formerly, there had been immediate spiritual experience in Ephesus. But now another thing came to take its place, which takes its start in the time of Alexander. Thus you see, what was a mighty revelation of instinctive wisdom through thousands of years flowed at length into concepts whose inner force of life and strength must once more be revealed in time to come.
In very truth, the time will come when humanity will find again what is truly resting as in a grave, namely the cosmic wisdom and the cosmic light.
The human being will learn to read once more in the great universe, will experience the resurrection of what lay hidden in the intervening time of human evolution between these two spiritual epochs.
And we, my dear friends, are here to make manifest once more the things that are hidden.
Anthroposophy is here indeed. It lies at rest in human hearts. Only these human hearts must be able to open themselves in the true way.
Then, even as Aristotle and Alexander used the fire of Ephesus when it flamed forth anew in their hearts, when it flamed forth in the cosmic ether and bore down to them anew the secrets that were afterwards gathered up in these very simple concepts, then, even as they could use the fire of Ephesus, so will it be our part to use what has also been carried out into the ether in the name of the Goethe Anum, all that has been intended, and that shall be intended with anthroposophy.
What was achieved and won and founded as an earthly thing was carried forth into the cosmic spaces. When we recognize and know the consequence of it, we may justly say,
Hereafter, we understand that we can no longer merely represent an earthly concern. We must represent a concern of the wide ethereal universe, where the spirit lives, where dwells the spirit-filled wisdom of the world. It has been carried forth, and we may now fill ourselves with the Goetheanum impulses as cosmic impulses.
Take it as a picture, which signifies the deepest truth expressed in simple words when we say, since the Christmas Foundation impulse, anthroposophical work is permeated with an esoteric character.
This esoteric character is here because what was once earthly rayed forth into the cosmic spaces through the astral light that played its part in the physical fire. It returns again as a living power into the impulse of the anthroposophical movement, if only we are able to receive them.
And anthroposophy must hold to this spirit that arises ever again out of eternal foundations.
Then, my dear friends, we shall carry with us from this gathering feelings that will give us courage and strength to work when we stand once more in our different places.
So now, dear friends, prepare to co-create the social sculpture that the breakout room provides. And all are invited to enter. We're going to meet with those that the Zoom gods have decreed we shall commune with, if it is your will. Yeah, I mean, it's strange, right? And wonderful how karma works in cyberspace. So what do we want to talk about for the next 10 minutes? Perhaps you might want to ask yourself, how can we be awake to this reality of the jealousy of the gods, as well as the jealousy of men, so prevalent today? Or maybe you're feeling called to ponder Aristotle's categories with your Zoom buddies. For me, I have been enkindling connections between the Colossus of Artemis and the representative of humanity. Seems like there's an open secret here, right? That the group is a veil for the new Isis. So much to think about, right? So what stood out for you in the reading? We're each going to take 3 minutes to share whatever insights or questions that the Spirit moves you to discuss. And Sandra's setting up the rooms now. Yeah. And when we return, Kathy Green will facilitate a short harvest of any thoughts that you might want to share with the larger group. And then we'll end as we began with song and You're With Me. Are we ready to commune?
Almost. People kind of, move themselves around, and so I need to move them around a bit. Yeah, just do this. And I might have to change because some people have left in the process here.
Okay, we're back.
Well, I'm going to ask Kathy Green to step up as soon as everybody gets back in the room here. And
democracy now.
Whoop.
Being recorded.
Welcome back, friends. Thank you for being part of this process and for helping us digest all of this amazing material. Kathy, you want to lead us in? See if anybody wants to share?
Yes, I was so happy to be working with Henry and Sarah in our breakout room. And, we just kind of first are a little overwhelmed with the amount of material and the pictures and how much there is to take in. And what speaks to you. But on the other hand, I think with all of the material, it felt so much more personalized, as well as having it work with the community and everybody together. So, I mean, it was so beautiful. It wasn't just text, it was kind of a living experience, especially building on from the Holy Nights and where we are now and working with the material of the Goetheanum. And Henry brought in when we started talking about the jealousy of the gods and the jealousy of man, and his work with the Gnostic scriptures on how it was brought out in those scriptures of the jealous God. And he was, a jealous God before all other gods. So we'd love to hear anybody else's experiences in their breakout of what they'd like to bring forward. You're muted, Hazel. She says, raise your hand. If anybody else has more to contribute. I know it was a lot of material.
I'm Alicia Marroquin.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, Lark and I were discussing this idea of that Steiner talks about the St. John's Gospel, and in the beginning was the word kind of, is that it? Yes, that, and how he identified how the Ephesian mysteries are bound up with that, with speech, and the St. John's introduction in that gospel, and then the idea that these fires. I mean, we were talking about the Library of Alexandria, which is something I enjoy the background of, and here are these moments of fire, and really fire plays a part in all of this. In here, the Gratianum fire, the Ephesian, and then Alexandria, the Library of Alexandria. And anyway, we were talking about that. We were talking about the idea of speech. And then of course, Steiner talks about, you know, fire and air and water, but that was kind of the whole kind of background behind the Ephesian mysteries and the Ephesian Artemis, the word and the resounding and the logos and what is heard. So, that's kind of what we got into. If anyone has anything they want to add.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Mark.
Yeah, we did a whole chronological, but we came to how important speech was, and we looked at the Goetheanum and the larynx and the shape of the larynx, and with the what do you call it, the
sculpture,
podium, yeah, and everything, and how important that was. And then we got into the forgive them, Father, they know not what they do, and we went from forgiveness, and you know, this is tying in with the jealousy of man and the evil of man, but that we went from how one you know, forgiveness is the first step, and then you move into compassion, and compassion is really that you know, that understanding and feeling into, and the love and the heart forces. So we kind of went full spectrum of the whole historical into where we are aiming, you know, in the next times to be able to, and right now, especially with all of the evil that's about us. So I will quit. I mean, there was a lot more, but that was kind of like in a nutshell.
That was great. I really like that. And Amy, if you've got something that you wanted to contribute?
Yes, although I think Rob had his hand up before me if he wants to go first.
Oh, Rob?
It's Rod.
Rod.
Yeah, I enjoyed time with Jennifer down in Australia. I'm over here in Portland, Oregon. So we chatted across the water, and I found myself discussing with her and sharing ideas about our local groups, anthroposophical groups, because to me, this whole exercise that was asked of me to participate in this, the preparation to participate in this time was somewhat of a challenge. I felt a personal challenge that here have been through history, all of these peoples and events to carry something on. And I take that very seriously, that there's something to carry on now by me. And if I'm to believe what Rudolph has been saying, it comes to focus in anthroposophy, and that there happens to be a few folks in Portland that are interested in that as well. So I've been trying that, not real successful, but one other thought I had relative to the fire business. I just attended last night a world premiere of a movie called Elemental about forest fires and how it's consuming a lot of the West Coast anyhow. Oregon, California had a horrible year last year. And the essence of the answer was we need to build fireproof homes. That it's the embers, it's not the flames moving in and devouring you, it's these embers that drop in. And if it's not the material to combust, it's not going to burn your house down. And I just now, while I was meditating on that with what we've been sharing, I thought, yeah, that goes for me too. I can kind of get a little fiery when I don't agree with what's in front of me. And I think I need to just build a structure out of concrete and not just cedar and balsa wood so that I can still stay in the flames and the embers coming at me and offer something that's of value and carries forward what's been sent to me.
That's great. Yeah, I saw some of that too about the fireproof houses. Good thoughts. Amy.
Thank you. It's great to hear from the people speaking before me and feeling in the ways that it connects with what my group talked about. I was with Brenda from Maryland, and I'm in Southern Virginia, and my third person, Ellen, is in Tennessee. So we've got a nice kind of connection there across the East Coast, Eastern region. And trying to distill down a nugget from today. Ellen spoke a little bit about how it kind of coalesced into the concept of faith for what is really living there, faith to be able to hold strength in that faith of what we're living in that we don't see, these etheric realms. And Brenda spoke a little bit about being able to discern the difference and commit. I'm putting this a little bit in my own words. I'm sorry, Brenda. To commit to this deeper picture of what freedom means, and not just a quick sense that, freedom means I can do what I want, but freedom in a deeper sense, what would that mean? The freedom to be able to act on behalf of these things that are so important to us. So, and I had a little sense of connection between those moments when we can speak as Christ said to Peter, now you're speaking from the Spirit. And a minute later, he said to him, now you're speaking with the tongue of Satan. So all of us from one moment to the next have to find a way to tune ourselves to that quality of freedom, that quality of truth, and somehow bring our faith that we can do it. So that was my wrap up of our little group.
Wow, well done, well done. Jean Yeager, thanks for chiming in. Did you want to share with us?
I do, but maybe Tom was first.
Oh, I didn't see Tom. Oh, there you are, Tom. We have room. I think Hazel has said that we have time for just one more. So go ahead, Tom.
Oh, well, I hate taking Jean's time away. I could make it real quick. I had a good conversation with Janine. We talked about Aristotle's categories and the fact that they all seem to relate to the physical world, to the material world. And even though, we were told that all that is left of his teachings are logic and things about the material world. So it's curious what, it'd be nice to know what he had to say about the immaterial world. And and then we started talking about the jealousy of gods towards men because of the journey that they have and the freedom that they have or that they're working towards. And the words from a 60s song, freedom is just another name for nothing left to lose, ties into the notion that we're only partly free, or that we have to work for our freedom because we're constrained by all the things that we're burdened by and that we're attached to. We need to let go of those in order to be free.
Okay, Jean.
Jean will bring a very quick metaphor, and that is the fire. When a fire burns a large pine tree or fir tree, those cones on that tree explode and they broadcast their seeds a great distance away from the tree. And I believe that the metaphor is that when the Goetheanum burned, that basically anthroposophy, like a seed, was broadcast around the world and then came and caused many things to arise in all parts of the world. So fire is not necessarily, it can be a motive force. And certainly in our own lives, if we're enthused and we have a fire of conviction and will and those kinds of things, there's a great many things we can accomplish. So I just leave you with a metaphor of the first Goetheanum actually launching the entire anthroposophical movement worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone. I know there's so much more we could talk about here, but I'm going to invite Velsom, Lucian, and Ultra to speak a little bit about their process before we close with the song and the eurythmy.
Thank you, Hazel. And thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts and hearts with this event. We feel really lucky to be here.
We'll just share really quickly that this opening song that we sang, that we're about to sing one more time to close us out, it came through all at once. We just improvised the song with this verse, and we recorded it on Lucian's phone. And then we spent a good 4 hours learning what we had improvised.
And it was interesting because during the improvisation of singing these words, we weren't feeling like the song was very successful. It was like some moments were great and some others were not. But then when we were working back with it and just seeing if we could keep everything we wrote intuitively, we found that about 85 to 90% of what we sang was totally perfect.
Including the moments of dissonance. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear this when we're singing it, but we really feel that each of these planetary beings really sculpted the melodies that they are sung through. So we just want to thank Hazel for asking us to do this, because whenever you ask us to write music, it's always this sort of epiphany of spirit.
Yes.
World engendered being, you in the form of light, from the sun empowered, with luna's might, endowed with sounding Mars, life-stirring song, and swift-winged Mercury's motion in thy lead. trumpeters, all wisdom and grace bestowing, Venus's loveliness, that ghostly Saturn's ancient memory devoutness, unto the world of space and time, the hello.
Wonderful. Thank you.
The planets are singing with you, most certainly. The stars are twinkling. I'd like to invite Alice to come back and lead us out with some eurythmy so we can put all this energy into our bodies once again.
I can't see you, Alice. Are you ready? World engendered being.
Oh, wait, we're going to restart because
now I can see you. Great.
Let's start again.
Awesome. World engendered being, you in the form of light, from the sun empowered with Luna's might, endowed with sounding Mars's life-stirring song and swift-winged Mercury's motion in thy limbs, illumined with royal Jupiter's all wisdom and grace bestowing Venus's loveliness. That ghostly Saturn's ancient memoried devoutness unto the world of space and time, the hallow.
Thank you so much. How incredible. What a blessing. May all the regions receive this beauty and truth. I'm going to ask our dear friend Angela to come back and tell us what's in store for us in the future.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Hazel. Beautiful job bringing together so many different voices and so many different arts and bringing it in a magical way that we could essentialize and spend an hour and a half together here. Thank you so much. So this is the first in a series of 3, and you probably know that because you got an email when you signed up. But I'll just remind you that we're going to take a break in August, but we'll come back together in September. You can see on the slide, September 16th, when we'll turn our attention to the 100-year anniversary of the Christian community. Between the next 2 Roots and Renewal sessions, we'll have our AGM. And you heard Hazel a couple of times say, enkindling connections. And that's the theme of the AGM this year. That'll be the weekend of October 8th and 9th. And we'll be meeting in person in Washington, D.C. and doing some lead ups on Zoom before we arrive in person. So watch your inboxes for more information about that. And then after the AGM, October 16th, we'll come back for our 3rd Roots and Renewal session. And that time we'll turn our attention to the 100-year anniversary of the founding of the Esoteric Youth Circle. So you know where to find us. And this is a free program offered by the Anthroposophical Society in America, but we do invite you to make a donation to further the work of the regional councils. So thank you, everyone. And I wrote down in my notes from the last part of the reading, courage and strength to work from our different places. So I think that's a good way to imagine ourselves on this Zoom landscape, all our different places, enkindling connections and finding the courage and the strength to work for the spirit. So thank you. Thank you again, Hazel, and all our speakers and artists and co-creators.
Thank you so much, Angela. Thank you, friends. Blessings. Until next time.
Bye, everybody.
Hello. Nice to see you.
Hey, Hazel.
Hi, darling.
Bye.
May your summertime living be easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you all for everything.
Thanks, everyone. If you're feeling better, Robin.
We're getting there. Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Blessing.
Thank you.